Many years ago, I made the difficult decision to leave academia. There were several extenuating circumstances, but suffice it to say that I wanted to make a more positive impact on my students than I was able to make within the confines of an institution. And so I made the leap and became an independent voice teacher for a couple of years before joining the voice faculty at NYU Steinhardt, where I currently teach. Now, being an independent voice teacher certainly has its pros and cons. I appreciated the freedom to create my own schedule, develop my own ethos, and curate my clientele. Of course, it was stressful not having that bi-weekly paycheck, but I was very fortunate to have a regular roster of clients. And while I appreciated my time teaching at the same institution for over 10 years, I found that I was more challenged by working as an independent teacher, that in some ways it required me to be more flexible and have a broader perspective on my vocation, the industry, and their impacts. Hi, my name is David Sisco. My pronouns are he, him, and welcome to my podcast, Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. This podcast is dedicated to the art and practice of teaching singers. It is an extension of my book of the same title, which was released by Routledge Press this past July. It is available on Amazon, Routledge.com, and anywhere you get your books. Today, we're going to talk about being a teacher beyond academia, both as an independent and secondary teacher. And I have two very special guests that I am just chomping at the bit to talk with because they are so well versed in today's topic, and I just adore them both so much. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the doctors McQuade, Jennifer, and Mark. Dr. Jennifer McQuade is a highly skilled professional who brings her experience as a performer, clinician, and researcher to the studio for the tremendous benefit of her students. As a former university faculty member at various institutions throughout Canada and the United States, she has presented research internationally and has published articles in the Journal of Singing. Since 2018, she has served as director of choirs for Lowndes High School and as the founding director of the Valdosta Academy of Performing Arts since 2017, where she teaches voice, piano, and manages a team of instructors. She holds a Doctor of Arts in Music with an emphasis on pedagogy and performance from the University of Mississippi. With more than 30 years in the arts as a performer, teacher, director, and administrator, Dr. Mark McQuade brings a breadth of experience to the vocal and theatrical arts. Since 2022, he has served as the director of theater at Lowndes High School, where he teaches the theater classes and directs their productions. Recent directing projects have included My Fair Lady, Our Town, Into the Woods, Six the Musical, Teen Edition, and Noises Off. Before joining the LHS faculty, Mark spent 16 years in higher education teaching voice, vocal pedagogy, and directing opera. As a performer, Mark has appeared in musical theater, opera, concert, and recitals throughout the United States and Canada. He is also an active researcher and published author. Jennifer, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I just have been such fans of both of yours for such a long time. And then we had that great opportunity to work together on the ICVT presentation for, was that Sweden?
It was Sweden, yeah,
Sweden,
Stockholm.
yes.
A few years ago.
Stockholm. Yes, I
It
know. I
was
can't
great.
believe how long how long ago that was. But I think so highly of both of you, and thought you would just be the perfect people to have this conversation with today. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about your careers in post-secondary education a little bit, and what did you enjoy?
Yeah, so I mean, we both were in academia, higher ed for 16 years.
hmm
So for quite a while. I taught private voice, vocal pedagogy, was an opera director. I also had the good fortune of directing a regional opera company. Jennifer can talk about what she?
Yeah, so I taught primarily private voice and diction classes, and I had a small a cappella ensemble as well. Um, Kind of let all the stage work happen with Mark. But I would say I think the things that were most enjoyable with teaching at the academic level, at the academia level, was really just developing relationships with students, and that is the thread that just continues through our lives. I think if there was one thing to say about teaching in general, why I do it, why do I continue this crazy schedule day to day, and I think it's because I recognize that we have a gift for teaching and we have a gift for being with people, and that I feel a strong sense of duty to share that with others.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that I always felt, I was very fortunate that I had teachers who invested in me. And so being able to give back and invest in students has been a real joy in my life. It can come with problems and struggles and trouble,
It
and
can.
it can, believe it or
I haven't
not.
found the downsides yet, so
Oh, well, lucky you.
You are
Come to my
blessed.
world, David.
So blessed.
But those trials and tribulations are definitely not outweighed by the good and the connections that Jennifer mentioned we make with students and just the investing that we can do in their lives. I think is really important. In college, it has like every job, there are pros and there are cons, and I really enjoyed our time in academia. I guess I never really saw myself when I started off as a young teacher, straight out of graduate school. I never saw myself leaving academia. But like all things, we don't always make the plan.
yeah. Well, and that actually kind of perfectly leads to my next question, and I wanted to ask if it would be okay if you would be willing to share a little bit about what drove your decision to take kind of this different path going into secondary and independent teaching.
Absolutely. There are many reasons. Like I said, I never really saw myself leaving academia, but when we were in North Dakota, there was circumstances that made us leave there. I mean, we really enjoyed our time at Minot State, and it was just a kind of a fluke thing that budget cuts were happening and we were let go. And so we started looking, and that's what brought us to Valdosta State. And when we moved here, unfortunately, there was only one position. So Jennifer took the very unselfish position and said, "Okay, we'll go, and we'll make it work." And she started her own academy, which I'll let her talk about that. And I had the position at Valdosta State, and then ultimately, it was kind of a God thing. It's just like I was not happy. I didn't like going to work every day, and other doors opened. One door, I mean, I was tenured. I was an associate professor, but there were too many things that were telling me this is not the right place to be right now, and so I made the change.
So I'll speak into that too. Like Mark said, I mean, we were groomed, I would say, is the word I would use, academically and um, in every way to really be a part of academia. That was the course of life that we had chosen. I really didn't want a life on the stage full time. You know how there is that saying that those who can do, and then those who cannot teach. That is so cheap to me, because teaching is such a gift and a passion that I truly uphold. So when we left Minot State, I would say it was very sad. But I would also say that as the Canadian girl who's always lived in the cold, if somebody had asked me when I was 15 years old, not knowing what direction my life would lead into, where would you like to live when you grow up? I would have said the southeastern corner of the United States because that's what we knew as family vacations being Canadians. And it's also still east, so it's close to where my family is on the eastern coast of Canada. But it's warm and I'm an outdoors girl. So I was happy with the fact that Mark got the job and Jennifer was going to figure it out. So I did what I like to say is I took the lemons and I made lemonade, and I think it's very sweet. So there was no academy here. There was no formal way for students outside of school, outside of anything really to hone their crafts, and that became very evident to me even before we set foot in Valdosta to live. And so I thought, well, here's my opportunity to make something, and I'm still doing it. It's been 9 years, and I love it. And while that became the focus for me my first year here, I truly never imagined in my life being in public education, like in public school. Honest to goodness, I just started making friends with people, getting into the school systems, getting to know the students and the teachers that were a part of the arts community here in Valdosta, just as a way to offer my services to them and let them know, hey, I'm here. I'm the new girl on the block, love to help out any way I possibly can. And it was in a show at VSU in their musical theater department where Mark and I were there watching something. I can't remember what show it was, but it was a musical, of course. And the then theater director, now theater director now, right? But the then theater director at the time was sitting in front of me, and she turned around. She said, "Oh, Jennifer, the chorus director at Lowndes High School is leaving. He's going to further his education, and you should apply for the job." And I literally started laughing out loud. I was like, "Oh, that's not for me. That's so cute, but that is not for me. Thank you for thinking about me." And then, as God would have it, I have to say, um, there was that little voice in my head that thought, what if? I've always been a true believer that we don't know the way. There's what is the way, right? I know that for us, Jesus is the way. And so that little voice just kept speaking to me for approximately the next week. And I said, maybe I'll just send an application in and I'll go into the school when they call me in for an interview, because I'm sure I'll get an interview, and I'll have a conversation with their team and their principal. And, by golly, that's what I did. And I walked out of that interview thinking, I think I could do some work here. And here I am.
And for me, it was a, a difficult decision, but at the same time, it was pretty clear, right? All the pieces kind of fell into place with the theater director position opening up. Jennifer had been the chorus director there for several years by that point. And it was just a risk worth taking, because I saw the investment that she was making in her students and the impact that she was having on such a significant number of students. In the private studio, we have 15 to 20 private students. She has 70
In one
in
class.
one class, right?
Yeah.
And I have 40 in one theater class. And so, and we have multiple classes. It's not just the one. So the impact, I could see how she was implementing change and the good things that she was doing. And I was like, well, we worked together for 9 years at Oklahoma Baptist University and had great success. We loved our time there. And so why not work together again?
Mhm. In that moment where we knew that the then theater director was leaving, Mark was actively, alongside myself, trying to reach out to our colleagues within the state and surrounding states looking for a theater director. And then one morning, we're in the bathroom getting ready for our respective jobs, brushing his teeth, I think, and he said, maybe I'll do it. I'm not really loving going to work anymore, and I miss working with you. Maybe I'll be the theater director. And I think I might have spit out my toothpaste at that moment. And then I thought about it, and why not? You've always done all the stage things, and we would be doing it again together because I actively work on the music for the musicals. So let's go for it.
That's amazing. I wonder if I could, if it's okay to kind of just tease out something that you said, Mark, that your training had maybe in some ways you'd been, or maybe Jennifer, you would say that you'd been groomed kind of to pursue vocation in academia, and I wondered, is that because excuse my ignorance, I think you both have performance-based degrees rather than mus ed, or was it, did you do?
Well, we are both our undergraduate degrees are both in performance. My master's degree is in performance. Jennifer's master's is in performance. She has a artist diploma in performance. Our doctoral degrees were in performance and pedagogy.
Love it.
So we did have, in our doctoral studies, they were largely geared towards the pedagogical side of things. We did a year-long internship with an otolaryngologist, speech pathologist clinic. And I was fortunate enough to work with Mr. Miller, Richard Miller, at Oberlin, and so I assisted him in a lot of the summer workshops that he did. So I had been around teaching and master classing and um, all of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where she was going with the idea that we both had an interest in teaching. I remember Richard talking to me seriously about. He's like, "You seem like you would make a good teacher. You have that kind of mindset, and you're interested in the sorts of things that teachers need to know." So.
Yeah. Do you think that did that feel kind of individual to you, or do you think that there's something within academia that may shepherd people into that kind of field?
That's a really good
Good question.
question.
I mean, I've one of the biggest challenges for me leaving academia was sort of the prestige of it, right?
It's
It's like
humbling.
we think that when you're a university professor, that comes with a certain level of honor or prestige, right? And so leaving that to move to secondary education. And it just seemed like, it's a bit humbling, right? And so, but once and as I've been doing this, and Jennifer can speak for herself, but as I've been doing it, it has been a humbling experience in many degrees, but the sheer impact and positivity that you see, the change that you're making in students, at least I've been able to make, I know Jennifer's made it because I've seen it, is really remarkable. It's very different than academia.
I would like to say that Mark and I've had conversations about this. We've been married 23 years. And I can honestly say that what we do is truly a ministry. So we always want to be where we're most needed. And I can tell you that where we are, even though we have an amazing school, we truly do, with lots of resources and beautiful facilities, and students that are good. They're well managed for the most part. They're still students. There are about 3,400 of them.
Yeah, over 3,000 in our school.
Wow.
But without a shadow of doubt, we are needed there by our students. And I think that's why we continue to do what we do. I would be lying if earlier today I didn't use the words "I want to quit" because I'm tired. We never stop. We truly, truly don't. I'm business on top and I'm so not on the bottom right now. I I'm wearing leggings because we just came from show choir rehearsal for the past 4 or 5 hours. But I don't want to quit. There are just days where I wish I had a little bit more me time or a little more us or
Of course.
family time. In fact, we've told our children get the stuff done by 9 p.m. because we are spending family time together tonight. But we know. In fact, I just said this to my students as we were finishing out our last dress rehearsal. It was our dress rehearsal for next week's show, and we're competing in 2 weeks. Um, I'm tired. We're all tired. We're at that point in the semester where it's competition season and there are performances that are happening and the rigors of school, especially those students who are taking upper level AP classes, all of it is starting to hit. And none of us are immune to it. But I said, the reason I'm here tonight, when it comes to devotion, I really want to be with my family. Like I desperately desire family time, but the reason I'm here is because you guys are my number two. And we feel that way. Those kids that we get the privilege to work with are they're in the arts. Some of them are there because they're naturally talented. Some of them don't really have much talent at all, but they're there because they know of the community that we try to foster with our students. And I think that's just because we've listened to what our calling is.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about what, if anything, has changed in terms of your teaching style or relationship to students moving from post-secondary to secondary and independent as well?
Yeah. Obviously, when you go from teaching at a university and the people are all adults, even though they're still the freshmen they're still trying to learn how to adult.
Sure.
Um, and then we move down to kids who are 14, 15, 16, 17 years old.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, the freshman in high school, it is a drastic change between a freshman in high school and a sophomore in high school. There is something significant in the maturation, but still, I mean, they're still all children, right? I mean, we're now no longer working with young adults; we're working with children, and
Who don't know what they want to do
who,
yet.
yeah,
They
right.
don't know who they are.
Well, we had some college students who didn't know what they were
That is
and
absolutely
wanted
the
to do.
truth. That is true.
But the high schoolers, I mean, they're just trying to figure out life in general, like how to be a human. And so it's for me, I've had to. And actually, I had one of my students. This is funny. One of my students who is a senior this year, because this is my fourth year now in at our school, and she came up to me and she's like, "Dr. McQuade, you and I started together. I'm going to graduate. You're like we've been here the whole time together." And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "I remember your first semester. You thought you were still teaching college." And we had no idea what you were talking about. And I was like, I get it. I get it. I totally understand. And yes, I was. I thought I'm just going to walk in here and I'm going to teach them just like my college kids, and I'm going to whip them into shape, and they're going to be like, "Wow, this is awesome." And they were like, "What is he talking
Yeah.
about?"
Yeah.
So I've had to kind of retool the way I approach topics. We still cover topics that I think are important to them, and I'll use language and things that I would do with university students, but maybe not all at once, or maybe just incrementally here and there, or maybe just take, okay, we're going to talk about this, but we're going to talk about it in terms that make sense to you, not to me, right? And
Yeah.
so just meeting them where they are,
Mhm.
right? And I would say I've always tried to meet students where they are, but I have had to retool the way I do that and remind myself where they are. They are not where those college kids were.
Sure.
That doesn't mean they're not intelligent or anything like that. It just means they're young. and they're
The
still learning.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just something as I get older and
Yeah.
become more aware of, like the distance between
Right.
myself and my students, and just it's like, oh, you're living in a different culture
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
some
Absolutely.
ways, and like different language and different, and so like this idea that,
6, 7.
Stop.
yeah,
You don't even, do you know what we're talking about?
I mean, I know it's a thing. Do I
Yeah.
know what it is? No,
No.
I
Okay.
just
no.
go on with 8, 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was thinking earlier today because I knew we were doing this, and I was thinking, okay, when I started teaching at the university, I was 27 turning 28, right? And those kids were 18, 19, 20 years old. So
They
I
weren't,
was,
we were not that far
we were
removed.
pretty close,
Yeah,
Sure.
right? Now
let's not
I'm
talk about it.
30 years older, more than 30 years older than the students that I'm teaching, right?
We are literally we're their
Were
parents.
their parents,
I have
I'm
two of
older than
my
some
own
of their
children.
parents, right?
I have two of my own children in one class with me. Like I'm literally, they call me Dr. Mom Quaid. I'm literally their mom at school. Not my children. All the other children call me that.
Yeah, they call us
Sure.
mom
We
Quaid.
are their parents' age.
But
Right.
I think if I had this job when I was that 27 going on 28-year-old, I would not be able to invest in these students the way they need investing in,
Mm-mm.
right?
No.
Now, because I'm the age I am, I see them as children for what they are. And I feel like because we have 3 kids of our own, I can meet them on that level and be a better influence and feed into them more than I ever could have had this job been immediately out of college.
What do you think younger learners need in terms of support that may be different from college age students? You've kind of touched on this maybe a little bit
Yeah.
in terms of language and in terms of kind of the nuts and bolts of teaching, but I'm just wondering in terms of actual support as an adult in their lives.
And I would say it's a fine line. I often feel like a therapist, and I really don't want to be, but I know that all of my students who are going through something, they all come to me, and I carry that with a badge of honor as well. But these children, some more than others, um, they may not have the right kind of role model in their personal lives. So when Mark says meeting them where they are, they're everywhere, quite frankly. Um, some are perfectly well adjusted young adults that are going to be fine. Some are on the fence. And I would say that was the biggest struggle for me, David, in my first year of teaching, was not ever being exposed to any of that just because of, I would say I was raised, I had a charmed life. I did not want for anything. I did not need anything. I wasn't spoiled. I understand what it took to make the penny that was needed to purchase the things. But oof, that is not the situation where we are. It's everywhere, and um, I think honestly, just being there to listen to them. We know what it's like when we were young. If we think back about the way that we were taught, we always felt as children, that you're being told to do this, you're being told to do that. Like no one's listening to how I feel. I see that in kids um, on different levels.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective as the theater guy, I want them to explore and create and experience beyond what they know so far, right? And
Sure.
because we live in a fairly rural-ish, I mean, our town has approximately 100,000 people, but there's a huge Air Force base here, and but it is we're the county school, but we have a fairly rural population, and so giving them the opportunity to explore things that they've never experienced, or trying to get them to think out of the proverbial box, is my goal. Because I mean, when you see the lights come on, like, oh my gosh, that was so cool, or wow, I've never seen that before. That's amazing. Right. And so giving them opportunities to explore is important. And yes, we did that at the collegiate level, but it's a different animal. I mean, those people are there for a specific reason. We have people who are coming to theater for the very first time. I mean, because they don't have theater at middle school or elementary school, and maybe they were in a community play or something, but they really haven't been on stage. Some people have never been on stage, and they're just like, wow, this is really cool. And so they're looking, when you ask, kind of what do they need? I feel like they need love and they need community. And we try to provide that through the programming that we offer and the opportunities that we give through productions and concerts and competitions and the tours or whatever we do. Um, it just gives them an opportunity to grow in every aspect of life.
I would say also, I mean, in addition to what Mark just said, is these kids need tenacity. They need commitment and
Mhm.
someone who's going to push them. And I'm not apologetic about that whatsoever. I think we are living in a time where there's a lot of hands-off parenting in the household, if there's any parenting at all. And so often these students will push back with adults, and the adults will step back. And that is not that's not the game we're playing here. And I truly believe that we have a high level of respect from our students because they know that they're not going to get that with us. We're going to push them because we know that they are good. We know that they are all capable, and we believe in them. And I just came from a rehearsal where I said this, I said, you're doing fine, but honestly, this is not competition level. So, go home, get off of your Xboxes, work on the things that you need to do and come back and be better because the reason I'm here is because of you. So bring it to me.
Yeah, but what I'm so I just want to lift up a couple things that I hear you're saying is that um, that kind of demand does not live in a vacuum, right? That or that challenge, I should say, doesn't live in a vacuum, and the reason that I suspect that the students hear and respect you in that is because of what Mark you were saying is that you're really seeking to see them where they are, right?
Yep.
And to challenge them from where they are, right?
Mhm.
And so I just find that, I mean, I think that's our job as teachers, period, regardless of who we're teaching, but I also just want to lift up the challenge of doing that with this particular age group and in a community that has its kind of its own needs, and then drilling down to the individual needs of the student as well. So like I just commend both of you. I think that that's really the work you're doing is so beautiful and such a gift to your students. Are there any other specific challenges you face as an independent or secondary teachers that you may not have experienced in academia? Jenna's like,
Yes, yes.
sure,
I
sure.
mean, the fact that we are in secondary education and we're also both independent teachers because we both teach privately through Jennifer's Academy, that's just another level of busy. But I mean, in secondary education, you have to think about a lot of things that you don't in higher ed. I mean, because you're working with adults in higher ed, you're working with minors, right? So there are a lot of things that you have to be cognizant of and be mindful, careful. You're dealing with parents, where at the university you really don't. There are, one of the biggest challenges for me is the I guess the time you're actually clocking in and clocking out. I never clocked in and clocked out in higher education. I set my schedule based on when my students' classes were, and I could set my voice lessons when I needed to. And I had my vocal pedagogy class and my opera studio class, and that was fine. And if I had a doctor's appointment, I could reschedule those lessons and go to the doctor. Or if I needed to go have my tire changed because I had a flat tire, I could do that. And, hey, I'll see you at 3 instead of 2 o'clock for your lesson. Okay, great. Um, doesn't work that way. You're there at by 7:45, and technically you're not leaving until 3:45 or 4:15. Now, that doesn't work for us because I'm there at 7:15 and usually don't leave until 7:15. So,
Wow.
but it's just um, it's just different, right? I mean, the time commitment is different.
The resources are too. I'm not going to say that we're void of resources. That's not a thing, but um, I will say that in academia, everyone is, I would say, an expert at their thing, right? So if you needed something that was in technology, for instance, you would say, "Hey, IT people, do this for me. You're great. Make it happen. I have a vision for this. Make it happen," and it would happen, right? There's a lot of red tape here, and I'm not saying anything negative about our IT area. I'm just using that as an example. But there needs to be approvals for everything because we're a part of a public education entity that has budgets for this, that, and the other thing, and it all has to fall in line. So that is um, not learning how to be in that area, or not learning like that, not being first immersed in my career with that mentality, just kind of sometimes still, like to this day, catches me off guard.
I'm wondering about your work as independent teachers, and currently, I just wanted to speak of maybe a little bit more on that
Yeah.
side of things. That
Thank you.
certainly, I am sure you were when you were at Minot, you had private studios and seeing people there too. And do you is your work at the academy, does it generally focus more toward younger folks, or is it a mix? And what do you find different or exciting between secondary and independent teaching?
So, first of all, I still love teaching one-on-one voice lessons. If I didn't, I would say I'm going to put that aside because I already have a full-time job. I don't need more time away from my family. But I can't not, you know. I, as a singer, always had that inquisitive mind of how does this work? How does that work? And I really want to impart that upon students of any age that are trying to better their voices. So I will say, yes, we teach younger students, and I'm talking like maybe like, well, I have a voice class for littles, which is something that I thought up because there are so many children that love to sing that really don't need to be one-on-one, you know,
Sure.
but they need to be active, and you need to foster that love so that they will grow up and become they will be a member of your voice studio privately someday. So we teach littles that are anywhere from like 6 years of age up through fifth grade. And then once they go to middle school, we teach them privately because their voice is at a place, boy or girl, where they can start to understand a little bit more of what you need on the personal side of voice learning. Um, And then we have, I mean, just yesterday, I had a lady who has recently joined her church choir, who reached out and said, I just need to understand my voice better. Or I have another fellow who texted me the other day and said, I'm starting to sing for these first Mondays of the month events that are happening in my hometown, which was not here, but a little bit further out. And I've lost my chops. I need help. So it goes from everywhere to like the little biddies that are in the voice class to grown adults who are just looking to better themselves. Um, and there's so much joy in that. Um, I can't not do it. I have taken the amount of nights where I am doing that after my full-time teaching job at the high school and have condensed it just because I will not be the best teacher if I don't have a little bit of time for myself and my family. But I love it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I teach mostly high school age and older. I have worked
Mhm.
with some younger students, but I have adult students. I've had several adult students as well. And for me, it's um, just a great way to kind of keep up my chops, right? Because
Mhm.
on the daily, I'm doing my classes are all revolved around theater, and acting and production and things like that, rather than the kind of singing side of things that I grew up doing. And so it's great to continue to get the opportunity. And of course, I do teach a musical theater class, and in my theater one class, we have a voice unit where we kind of experiment with how to use our voice in a dynamic way. And so, I do get to use those skills, but when I'm teaching privately at the academy, I get to put all of my skills into play, which is a lot of fun. And I enjoy that, especially with the diverse kind of students that we have. We get to do all kinds of operatic repertoire with some students and more musical theater, art songy kinds of things with the younger students. And, so it's a lot of fun.
There's something so joyful about just working with such a dynamic um, and varied group of learners, right? And I find that continually energizing
Mhm.
rather than exhausting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, I mean, we're about halfway through the semester. I'm doing okay. But like, ask me in like April, I may have a different answer. But like at
Right.
this moment, but there's something, especially with some of my avocational singers in my private
Mhm.
studio, that like the curiosity level. It's not that my I have great students at NYU who are very curious and really hardworking, but there's something about um, not having that, like, I've got to get this right and I got to do this at the academic level, that
Yeah.
it's not present in the avocational lessons. And so like it just feels like some things come easier because of that. And so I don't know, I wanted to share that because I just
Yeah.
that's what I'm taking from what you're sharing, is that there are lots of different types of learning environments that you're kind of
Oh, absolutely.
swimming in,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Right. And it's like life. Everything's different, right? So you're constantly coming up with new challenges and new opportunities depending on the student. And we have students who come drive a long way to get here,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
we feel like we owe them the best of ourselves.
Mhm.
And, even if we're tired, we still got to give them a great lesson.
It's that energizing piece that you said. And I think that's why, because I've toyed with this idea of, I'm just tired, but somebody asked me the question, do you come home feeling exhausted? And I said, no, I come home and I can't go to bed because it may be 9 o'clock, but I just taught a really awesome voice lesson and I'm happy for the student. And I think that's the piece that keeps me coming back to that.
Because you have such wonderful, rich, varied experiences, Can I ask you to share a little bit about if someone is thinking about moving either to secondary and independent or to academia? Do you have any thoughts of things you might have them think about?
Surprisingly enough, after Jennifer was the one that kind of broke the dam open. She took the plunge, and then I followed. But then we've had at least two other colleagues here in Georgia, one of which we've known for quite a while, who left academia, one took a middle school job, and the other one, I think, is at a high school.
These are
Um,
all very
and they're
fine
fine
teachers. Yeah.
singers, fine teachers,
Mhm.
and they just got tired of all
That.
the stuff. Um, you know and so by all accounts they're thriving and doing well. So I mean it is not something to be considered lightly. I'm
Mm-mm.
not saying that, and we had good conversations with those folks, but because it is, I mean, you are taking a more active role in the lives of the children that you teach. Like you are, like the children that we see them every day, Monday through Friday for an hour and a half, right? We're on block scheduling. We have four blocks. Each one is an hour and a half. So those kids, I mean, I see my students
For
at
6 hours
school
a week if they're not in rehearsal with us.
seemingly more than I see my own children,
Yeah.
right? And so you and the what's the word? I mean, it's a huge responsibility. At least that's the way I look at it, because they are looking up to you for so much. It's not just the knowledge that you're trying to impart on them. It's about being a human. How do you live? How do you view the world? How do I talk to someone? How do I, tell someone that they're a problem, right? I mean, they need everything. And what do I do with my future? Like I'm when I leave this place, where do I go? What do I do? I mean, they're putting a whole lot in your lap if you become their teacher, right? And you have to be willing to accept that responsibility and hold that as an extremely valuable commodity that you need to manage with the utmost care.
Yeah.
And I would say too, I mean, it has to be said that the relationships that we have with our students in the arts, obviously it's somewhat different than, say, a content teacher who's instructing in maybe science every day to those students. So, I mean, the privilege that we have is that personal connection with our students that might be, I'm not saying it's not available in other areas, but it's not as accessible perhaps. Um, but I would say to answer your question, David, to make such a leap out of, say, higher education into say, post or secondary education, um, the question that somebody would need to ask themselves is, what is the motivation? Why would you do that? And I think the answer there is going to show whether or not it's the right move.
What I'm taking from today's conversation is that there's an added level because eyes are on you in a different and deeper way, as you said, Mark, that there's a level of selflessness that needs to be present in your vocation as a teacher.
Absolutely. And that doesn't mean that you have to lower your standards or
Mhm.
you don't have to change who you are, but you have to change the way you relate to students in some respects, right? Because I can't say things to my high school students that I might say to my college students for various reasons, right? But I still have high expectations for them, and they know it, right? And they meet that, right? And if they don't meet that, they know what happens, right? So, but at the same time, yes, you have to uh, approach them in different ways. You can't be probably as direct in certain areas, but you can be direct, right? So it's a process, right? It's kind of to learn that. And so if somebody wants to make that change, they really need to think about all of the dynamics of the situation.
Yeah. Gosh, what lucky students. Your students are
Well,
so lucky to have you.
I don't know. We
Sincerely.
try. We try.
Um, and I'm lucky to share this time with you. Thanks so much for
Well,
making time
we're
to chat.
lucky to get to hang with you, David.
Thank you.
I mean, anytime we get to see your fashion, we're excited.
I will be in a store and I'll be like, this is a David Sisco shirt.
That's right, she does.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me very happy.
Yep. And every
Uh,
time our picture from Stockholm stop, our like what is it? James Bond kind of picture.
yes.
That's one of my favorite pictures of all time.
It's
So,
fantastic.
Same, same. Well, it makes me happy to stay connected with you just throughout these years and see all the great things that you're doing. So thank you for being such an inspiration.
oh, well, our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recently, I saw a social media post by Dr. Kari Reagan, someone I admire in our voice community. She shared that a colleague wanting to take on a leadership role in a national voice organization was told that because they are not an academic, it was quote unquote frowned upon. As a result, they chose not to move forward. Dr. Reagan rightly condemned this idea and reflected on her extensive experience both as an independent teacher and within academia. Others chimed in, noting that over 41% of teachers engaged in the national organization are independent studio teachers. And if I may, I just want to share a word about secondary teachers. I am here because of the knowledge, support, and love of my public school music educators, and I'm going to name them for you. Monica Goodwill, Nancy Congdon, Mary Schroyer, David Schroyer, Martha Skavinsky, and Thomas Voorhees. Each of these teachers invested in me in a way that I can only hope to pay forward in my own teaching. Their knowledge and skill should put them at the top of the list for anyone. And how lucky we would be, for instance, to have teachers like Jennifer or Mark in leadership positions. I mean, God knows they're busy enough, but you get my point. What a tremendous breadth of experience they have. And so I want to end our time together today by encouraging us to take a cue from one of my favorite television characters, Ted Lasso, and to be curious, not judgmental. I would love to be a part of a community where we are not looking for ways to gatekeep each other or tear each other down, where we can celebrate and are eager to learn from each other's varied teaching experiences, where we model the unquenchable thirst for knowledge we want our own students to embody. Let's continue to build that community together. And as always, I want to encourage you, if you have something you want to talk about or discuss from this podcast or other episodes, sound off. You can email me at wholeheartedvoicepedagogy@gmail.com, or you can always find me on the socials. My handle on most platforms is at Sisco Songs or at Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. I would love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, I want to encourage you to subscribe and share this podcast with your colleagues. The next episode is one I have been waiting to share for a very long time, so check back in a couple of weeks. More soon. Take care of you.